talk about zoning.
Most fun topic.
All right. We are recording. All right, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Great job. Today's meeting is mainly just to discuss the facade grant. Give an update on kind of where we're at, what next year looks like. In our presentation to town council in 2025, what we presented was a plan to finish out this year and then change the timeline for 2026 so that it would begin in January and run on more of a calendar year basis. So with that in mind, we knew that we needed to discuss some things that we worked through this most previous year to take a deeper look at some of the things. And I'm going to have to figure out what's going on with my computer.
It's trying, but if you were.
I keep trying to close it out a bit.
It won't, you're gonna. Let me,
Well, I've tried
help. Hold on.
finding out. I'm just gonna delete it from here and they can help me later. Anyway, so we have some thoughts and Miles will tell you more about it, but based off of conversations we've had within Central Business, but then also based off of conversations that we have had with the committee from last year, the selection committee, and some things that we need your all's guidance and direction on. So with a January start in mind, I'm going to pass it to Miles to kind of go over where we're at.
Okay, cool. Hi, everybody. So this right here is kind of like the updated eligibility that we're proposing. It's basically taking into account what we have talked about, whether that's internally as staff or with Central Business or with the selection committee, but just kind of clarified into something that when you read through it is kind of more encompassing of what we've been doing. So we will be keeping the goal of the facade grant the same, and I'll read it real quick. The facade grant program aims to help business owners, nonprofit organizations, and mixed use and commercial property owners to improve their building facades and encourage investment in our business areas. The program prioritizes properties in our downtown and Cambria areas. It is designed to enhance the streetscape, strengthen partnerships with stakeholders, and encourage revitalization of older buildings. So that will still be the same, and we will include that in the packet, but that up there is just the eligibility. With that in mind, we took a lot of the verbiage about like historic things, for example, the eligibility from the past year, the past cycle, was focused primarily on historic, and the goal focuses just primarily on investment with a bump for historic properties and historic projects. So what we will do is we'll include a section in the rubric that has different levels of historic renovations. So at the baseline with 0 extra points will just be any building or any renovation that has no historic value at all. If they have historic styles, which is towards like the time frame of early Christiansburg or even the early buildings history, that could be a smaller bump in points. And then if they have something that they can prove is historically accurate, whether that's through old pictures of the building or architectural drawings or things like that, then they get the highest point bump for that. And that way it's broadening the eligibility to fit kind of what we're doing with the grant, but then also still having that historic priority for those projects that are either in that style or even a higher point bump for historically accurate renovations. The other, and I guess this is more of a administrative change, is changing or allowing flexibility for the grant funds to be used to reimburse any eligible $10,000 spent on the project. So in years past, there was the precedent that if the project was started before the, I guess, selection was made, or if it continued beyond the deadline, that the entire project would be ineligible. So I'd like to see what you guys think of adjusting that so that if they complete $10,000 of work within that time period that's approved, that they can get that reimbursement on that amount, even if they started the project before or the project continues after, as long as it's completed within that window. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
And I'm fine with that. What was the timeline of the grant again? It was gonna,
Mhm.
the application was gonna be in January?
So we're going to start the process in January. So that would be like advertising and then talking to businesses. I think the application window would be spring, early springtime. And then we would hope to have selections and awards by July, the beginning of the fiscal year. And that way they have the whole fiscal year to the following June to finish their project.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with expanding that
Mhm.
so that people have more flexibility.
Perfect. And we are gonna have those kind of criteria in there that it still has to be eligible work. It still has to be completed within that specific timeline. But I think that would help a lot of our business owners. Let's see. So the other small change we made was just kind of separating out specific repairs. So you see in, oops. So in the first section, repairs are not included, but then they're broken out in a separate section. And that's just because the repairs for like the surfaces, the facade surface was considered eligible, and I think it still makes sense to be eligible. So specifically when it comes to stabilizing the building's facade, so if the brickwork is crumbling, they could stabilize that. That's technically not a renovation, it's a repair, so we just kind of included that in there. And then exterior surface repair, so masonry, brickwork, wood, stucco, or tile. But that would mean that any other repairs are not eligible. So like if they were doing an awning and repairing the awning and not replacing it, that would not be eligible because it's specifically these repairs. Let's see. The other changes, so when it comes to landscaping and hardscaping, there was a lot of back and forth on what should be allowed and if it should be incidental landscaping or hardscaping. So we thought maybe kind of a middle ground where it is eligible, but no more than 25% of the total project reimbursable amount can be landscaping or hardscaping. And that way it allows people to take on those projects and include that in a larger facade project while still limiting it. And it has a very clear cutoff of no more than 25%. So if they want to apply for a project that is, a significant portion landscaping and hardscaping, they can still apply for that, but then they can only get, say they reimburse, or they're asking for a $4,000 reimbursement. Only 1,000 of that can be spent on the landscaping. The rest has to be on the other projects.
I think going along with this is just the conversation of the facade and should landscaping be included at all? And it seems like, I don't know I know last year we
Mhm.
allowed a portion of it, and then the year
Mhm.
before that, they allowed a portion of landscaping.
Landscaping, hardscaping.
Right, so this would be,
Mhm.
it's been the past couple of years at least that it's been allowed, so just, do we want to continue allowing that? Do we want to stick to just the facade? Do we feel like, we're moving away in a variety of ways away from the original intent of the program? And if we do, is this one of the areas where we want to cut so that it is just the, the actual building? Or if we want to allow it, what percentage of the project do we want to allow?
I mean, I want to think about it a little bit, but I mean, my initial reaction is sometimes landscaping can be a piece of those larger projects that if you didn't do it, it would look incomplete, or, I mean, I do think it helps improve the facade
Mhm.
or the look of and feel of the buildings. I definitely don't want to spend a large portion of the funding on it, but I can see like a percentage just to say, if this is part of your project and you want to spend a small portion of that funds that you're awarded on this piece, I can see an argument for allowing that. And we have done it historically, so it's consistent.
What were some of the conversations when you were involved in the program last year as far as landscaping? Do you remember if any of the, I know it's been a while, but do you remember if any of the applicants had landscaping as part of their project and what you all talked,
They
what you all
did.
talked about? with them?
We didn't end up funding them as far as if it was just the landscaping. Some of them were like a majority landscaping.
Yeah.
And where that is not something, I mean, that's something that has to be maintained.
Mhm.
Whereas hardscaping would qualify, if there was hardscaping like, flower boxes or something,
Mhm.
then that was more permitted than what, something that could die,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
or mulch that starts looking deteriorated, whatever
Right.
that may be. So if it was more of a permanent thing, it could go along with hardscaping,
Mhm.
but not solely.
Sure. Not like solely a
landscaping. Yeah.
hardscaping or landscaping
Because
project.
somebody had applied for landscaping and paving.
Mhm.
That one wasn't funded because
Mhm.
there was no paving, and
Yeah.
then the landscaping that they proposed easily just.
So it sounds like
Concept,
last
yeah.
year's committee was also in support of a portion of it being landscaping. So I think just
goes
determining,
along with hardscaping.
yeah, if it goes along with it and is a minority percentage. So
Would it make sense to separate out landscaping and hardscaping? Because it sounds like the concern is more with the landscaping, with the maintenance, if you don't maintain it. Maybe we separate them and we say hardscaping at 25% and landscaping at like no more than 10%?
because
And-
hardscaping doesn't require
Right,
maintenance
right.
as often.
Or do we want to eliminate landscaping entirely and say just hardscaping? Because it seems like the concerns with the landscaping and the maintenance on that.
The one thing I'd be careful about is then you might encourage more hardscaping and less landscaping, and do you want less greenery in those areas?
That's a good point.
So it's not
No.
necessarily, yeah, well, and it's not say that people would, they might put in the flower boxes or something, or a bench or something like that, but it also could encourage some of those businesses, if they're not gonna get any funding, if it's gonna be an option at all for landscaping, hardscaping, if it's only hardscaping, then they're gonna be drawn more towards those inorganic structures and projects. So it's just kind of that balance, and what do you want those areas to look like?
Which unless they're planting a lot of trees, then it's not going to be that expensive. If they are, for
That's
example,
what I
doing
was just
flower boxes,
thinking.
then flowers aren't that expensive, so it's not really gonna incur a lot of.
Yeah.
Costs.
So I mean, it's something that if they needed to use all their budget for the hardscaping and other pieces of their project, they could do that easily by the flowers themselves. But if they wanted to add a few flowers, like it's not that much money to complete the project with a small portion, like 25% is extremely generous for those kinds of supplies. I think they don't think they would get close to that in a lot of cases.
I would only permit. If they were doing hardscaping renovations, then putting that with the landscaping, I think, instead of separating it out, would be a good idea to say. You are able to do hardscaping. If you're also doing landscaping, because. With so it was Subway that it was asked that they, if they're going to do something like that, add flower boxes on the outside. So it was the desire to provide hardscaping, which came along with a little landscaping.
Yeah.
So, incentivizing a little hardscaping is kind of nice because they might make a walkway look better, or, do something along with that landscaping, because a few flowers, or, I mean, not that we don't want people to do that. But I think we just want something a little bit more than that, because it doesn't make.
Yeah.
So if they're gonna submit for like a landscaping project or a hardscaping project, do we want to like require they have both landscaping and hardscaping as that portion of the project, have like elements of both? If that's the recommendations we're gonna give them anyways, to like include more permanent structures, or if they have permanent structures, include more greenery? Do we want to make that part of the eligibility requirement? And I don't know how we would phrase that, but just that way it has to have some element of both.
I don't think landscaping, good landscaping always requires hardscaping, I guess is where I'm
Okay.
stuck with that.
Okay.
Like you can do some really nice landscaping without any hardscaping at all.
Mhm.
It
Um,
just depends on what they define hardscaping as, which we also probably need to do. It's hard
Mhm.
to define that because a lot of people don't know, like, if they're putting in pavers and gravel to walk through a gold garden, and that, is that considered hardscaping?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I feel like the funding, I would like the funding to go to more permanent fixes and solutions. I'm okay with a little bit of landscaping being part of it. I think the purpose of it is to improve the facade going forward, so. And there's always gonna be maintenance even with some of those things. I'm not sure the best way to word it. But I mean, like a percentage going towards landscaping is fine. I wouldn't wanna do the all landscaping like you guys said. I can see the point of not necessarily acquiring hardscaping for it, but still being a percentage portion of the overall project.
You guys want to go down to 15%?
I think that's more reasonable.
I think that they
both.
won't even reach 15%. I mean, I mean, they might, but yeah, I think 15% sounds good.
Okay.
And that's 15% for landscaping or hardscaping or some combination of the two, right?
Thinking landscaping, and I could see hardscaping being something, especially, well, depending on where we land on
Mhm.
defining it, I could see that being something that is a qualified project.
Okay, and are you thinking, so I guess, are you thinking like landscaping and hardscaping combined is 15%?
I'm thinking, the landscaping is 15%.
And then the hardscaping is a separate percentage?
Well, I
Or-
wasn't even thinking percentage wise for hardscape.
Oh, so hardscaping would be like,
Part of
For
the
the permanent
project.
facade.
okay, so no, I guess. No limit on the hardscaping, but the landscaping is limited at 15%. Okay, okay. All right, so landscaping.
And for monetary context, if it was a $5,000 award, 15% would be 750, which that could get you a tree or some shrubs or whatnot.
Yeah.
If they even reach that.
I think that's good. Like, I think that's, you can definitely get that done with that 15%. amount.
If hardscapes being taken out, like separated from landscaping, is that something that you would want? That is, like you can only get hardscaping if there's also something for the structure itself, because then at that point you might have someone apply for only projects for in front of their building and not the building itself.
Yeah, I don't know, what do you guys think?
All right, good.
Thank you.
So it's whatever you were connected to before, it's still trying to connect. So you got a notification area.
Where's the note?
That's it.
Going or do we wait?
So,
I've done it a million times.
click OK. Click close
Those one.
the whole browser or whatever you were in, and then go back to what are you connected to down here? Disconnect, or actually, no, that is what you're supposed to be connected to. All right, now try to, because you have to sign out of the. All right, so just close that. So now
How do I close it?
it's trying to connect to the VPN.
Yeah.
You should close it there. Do you not have it? Put in, just put in, you have to read. Put VPN.christian.org right there. It's not gonna let you connect because it's trying to connect to the wireless, disconnect from the wireless. Close that out again like we did.
Did you want to
So,
screen?
okay,
You want to close the. Heat.
disconnect from the wireless.
But I'm in a recorded meeting.
That's the only way I know to get it is to disconnect the connection and then reconnect, because what the VPN is trying to do is connect to what you were connectable before, because you didn't disconnect from the VPN. So it's trying to connect to the same wireless that you were connected to before you brought the laptop back into the building. And Eric's got the VPN software set so that it will not connect to the VPN here while it's on the town's network, so it won't make the connection, so you're stuck in a loop.
Okay.
So that's the only way I know to get rid of it is to close out what you're connected to.
Okay, I'm just gonna roll with it.
Okay.
This
Thank
might-
you.
Yep, sorry.
Thank
Excuse me.
No, it's okay. Just, it'll just keep popping up and I'll keep closing out, but
Ignore the little box.
in an effort of transparency, I don't want to, stop it. So, sorry about that.
So I'll throw out an example. So one of our applicants for this past year was applying for their hardscaping in front of their building, which was like a patio across the whole front of the building. That, what would you guys think about that? Because that could be like his whole project or his whole application could be just the patio on the front there. Would that be an eligible project, even though it's not necessarily doing anything to the facade of the building itself?
There a difference between something that's attached to the building versus detached to the
Right.
building? Because that patio would be permanently attached to the facade versus if it was like a little stepping stone sidewalk, that wouldn't be attached.
Which that would bring into play the definition of hardscaping and whether that's going to be, it's gonna be attached or. detached.
So I guess is
Like,
that something
need to
we
define
we
these-
need to come up with a definition and bring it back for approval, or is that something we decide here?
You know, reason, like, sometimes when we talk about these things, I feel a little bit like, I don't know, stuck in my own like loop of, well, is it the facade? It's the front of the building. Is it gonna make it look nice in the area? Is it improving? Like, does that speak to the intention of the funding? And so I can say yes, 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 but then we go, is it the front of the building? Like, is it connected to the front of the building? Or is it just visible from the street? You know, and I have been leaning toward things visible from the street, including like in our downtown where you've got the ends of buildings or, you know what I mean? That are visible from the main street. And I think about all that stuff and improving the look of all that stuff and how that improves the overall look of those historic areas. And so then I think, okay, yes, if the intention is improving the look of those areas, all that makes sense to me that it's included. Is it the facade? Right. You looped it all together, but maybe that is not the facade. I mean, we need to discuss like, is the facade, are we saying the facade is the front and anything attached to the front? Or are we saying that this funding is available to improve what you can see from the street with an emphasis on the facade? That's where I'm stuck. Because those questions are easy to answer if all of those things are clearly defined.
Yeah. I think both of those, just my opinion, I feel like both of those are important and all of that works together to improve these areas that we're wanting to improve. But I do think that's a really important question of like the facade, what that is, which seems to be the building and seems to be the purpose of the grant from the beginning. So I kind of feel like if we are going to go a different direction, that maybe that would be a bigger discussion of like, are we, has the intent of the program changed to where we want it to be more than the facade, which is the building with a little bit of, front visual work. Like I think of the Chandler area, for example, I wasn't really part of the facade grant program then, but I know that was part of the discussion was the work that was done to that building, but also there was some landscaping, hardscaping done. So if we stick to the 15% that we're going to change it or, confirm, then does that keep us in alignment with the facade grant program's original intent? And if we want to go a different direction and expand it, then who needs to be part of that conversation? And does the name need to be changed? And is it a different program?
Then it would be like an exterior upgrade or something grant or exterior renovation grant.
Yeah.
Is it the structure or is it the streetscape? Facade or streetscape?
But I do think that, so this is our, last meeting before January. And if that's the direction that we're going to go, I do feel like we kind of are up against the clock on deciding. And I don't know the best way for that. I don't know if that's just your all's decision, or I don't know if we want to discuss. I am very much in favor of, we're allowed to have differing opinions. Miles will get to something later where, he likes option 3 and Daria likes option 2 and I like option 1. And I think all that's fine. But I would say my opinion, not that you're asking for it, but just as an employee of the town, I wonder if maybe it's not worth it to go one more year this next year with it as the facade grant program and see how it goes, because I think we did a lot of adjustments this year. And I think that they did a lot of adjustments last year. And I think it had like from 3 years ago to last year's committee, I feel like it grew. And I feel like from last year's committee to this year's committee, it's grown. And maybe seeing how 2026 goes with this new cycle and seeing if we can't continue to get people who are still interested in doing their actual facade and maintaining that program. And then if we get through the year and see that it hasn't worked and, we have a new council who may have new opinions and we have given it, another year with this group who are committed to helping with its implementation, then maybe we readdress and see what other options we can go. That doesn't mean we have to do that. We, of course, respect your all's guidance. But I would be curious to see if you guys have any thoughts on that. And you can go against what I say if you think,
So I'm curious and I kind of agree with what you're saying with the timeline. If we're going to make major changes that kind of will be tough to get done quick enough. But with keeping it facade grant, are you suggesting maybe like get rid of landscaping and hardscaping?
No.
Or just kind of
We've
keep
done
it?
that before. Yeah. So I
Okay.
think I like moving into the 15% and, we've considered that, but just, if we want to open it up more to it being not just the facade, but also the area and consider other types of projects and things, that feels like a pretty big change to me. So that would definitely change our timeline. That would be something we would want to take back to town council and get their insight on, because, we took to town council what we were going to do for, the rest of this year and for 2026. So I feel like we have, that blessing. But if we are going to revamp it, then, it'll be a different direction, which is fine. We can totally do that and scrap it if we feel like it's time to do that.
I would resist making any major changes. I know I would like to have a conversation about what is expanding what's eligible, something that brings value to those areas in town, especially and all around town, but those big changes before next year. So I say I would agree, we stick to the front, and next year we'll just let this program settle for a minute without making any more big changes. And if there's room to expand and council next year is open to talking about some of that, we can try it for the next year.
Sure.
I don't know, that's kind of where I'm
So I
saying.
agree. I think with half of council turning over, it doesn't seem appropriate to completely revamp the program
Right.
right before that
Right.
point in time. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we
that
can,
seems reasonable to me.
I feel like the previous, committees of staff and council have worked really hard to grow the committee and improve the committee, as I know we are. So I think if we go that direction, that feels good to me to know that we're sticking to the actual facade, which is what they worked so hard on last year and the year before and the year before. So I think that'll be good.
Would you be opposed? And I'm asking this just from me thinking, would you be opposed if we're going through with the facade this year and continuing forward as we have? Would you be opposed to, like we did with the streets committee? We have a traffic advisory group doing something like that, to have input on, or opening up to the public to give opinions about they think this is working, and then what we could do if they have ideas of what they see if they don't like the facade grant. what do they see as a better use
Mhm.
for the money?
100% down for it.
Yeah. So maybe that's,
And
some-
we're dually accomplishing
yeah,
multiple things.
Yes, and we can take our time, meet with them, collect their thoughts, have some discussions. If we don't change anything for next year and we let this settle, then we have all of next year,
Yeah.
not all of next year, but we have a chunk of next year to talk about it and see what we want to change, if anything.
so maybe we could staff can work on some, options for,
Outreach.
yeah, and then bring them back to the committee and see what you all think and which direction you'd like to go. And then
That would be great.
that's a great idea.
I love having our advisory group on the streets committee, and I feel like duplicating that in multiple committees is it.
Cool.
Great
Like
idea.
input's really good.
Mhm.
Okay. Alex, you want to keep going?
So we're gonna adjust landscaping to 15%.
Did you explain what the Cs and the As meant? I may have missed that.
Oh, no, I
Just
didn't.
Ask you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Cs are for like clarification, so it's something that was, we were already doing
Mhm.
or was already in the paperwork from last year, and then the As is additions. So it's something that was not in the paperwork last year that we're adding in.
Okay, got it.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Okay, so.
Any minute's gonna come to me.
I
with this
know,
meeting.
So we're capping landscaping at 15%, no limit for hardscaping. The next part is painting buildings. I know a lot of the feedback had been, we're looking for larger renovations, and we don't want people to just paint their buildings as a standalone project. So doing something similar with that and I just guessed 50%, but we can adjust that, maybe bring that down if you think there's a different percentage of the project that we could do something similar to the way we did landscaping. Do you think maybe 30% of the project should be paint? Up to no more than 30%?
What are some past examples of when paint has been part of a project?
So I don't know the numbers on the electric supply company in Cambria. I know they had that upper part of their building painted green behind their sign. I do know that Prestige Pet Hotel from this past cycle, a big portion of their project was painting the like awning across the front and then each column down the front of their building. So Prestige Pet Hotel was a pretty significant chunk of paint. And there have been other projects where, like, I think Electric Supply Company, it was a smaller percentage.
I don't feel strongly about changing the 50% in one direction or the other. I like that you included the review by the Public Arts Advisory Board. If there's decorative elements, I like that idea.
So I did want to bring that up. So with the Public Arts Advisory Board, with the way the, I guess, timelines for the application are, I'm not sure how their processes work, but I am a little concerned that adding another step to it might drag that part of the process out. So what would be y'all's thoughts on just keeping it to simple painting? And if there's anything more decorative or anything that resembles murals, that's not part of the facade grant, that goes straight to the committee.
Yeah, separate, like that.
Cool.
Let's do that.
Cool.
There's working with Reed right now on addressing separating murals out. Fine.
So much. Thank you so much for your work. It's gonna be good.
Okay, so we're good with the 50%. That sounds good enough to start with? Okay. There's my note for A versus C, so I should have put that at the beginning. Okay. In terms of some of the other feedback we got was the applicants wanted some more feedback throughout the process, like after they submit their application, to maybe go through and get some notes or get some thoughts on the application so they can revise it for the final. And I had talked with Blacksburg, and they do their initial application window The deadline closes it, and then for the ones that they already got, they do, their selection committee reviews it and scores it. They give their scores and notes back to the applicants. They give them another window to update and resubmit, and then they close and do a final scoring from the selection committee. So the three options we were kind of thinking, if we wanted to do something like that,
This is where the three of us have different thoughts.
so the first option would be, we close the application window. I score all of the applications according to the rubric and give them notes and give it back to them. Give them a window, and then when it comes back on the final scoring, it goes to the selection committee and they score and submit their final scores. The second option is we do not just me, but we do like a collection of staff to do the initial review and scoring and notes. And then the third option is we have the selection committee do the initial scoring and notes. If we do the selection committee that does both the initial scoring and the final scoring, there could be some, I guess, introduction of like bias because they've seen the projects before and maybe they would be more biased towards somebody who takes their recommendations versus somebody who doesn't. That could potentially impact things. The third option is the one I like. I'll be transparent about that. Because I think if we're going to be giving somebody feedback on what to improve, it should be the people who are doing the final scoring, telling them what they're looking for. If we do it as like an internal group, where it's several staff, we get a bunch of different opinions.
And that's more aligned with what Blacksburg does,
That's more aligned with what Blacksburg, because their selection committee is staff.
right?
So they have their internal staff do a first scoring, and then they have their staff do the last scoring.
Can I say?
Yeah, go ahead.
So like, as Miles said, with the third option, it might be introduced to by a little bit of bias because they'd be looking at it preemptively. For the second option, I feel like maybe we might have different communities between Blacksburg and Christiansburg. And so I just wonder if that's gonna be, if option two would, I feel like there may be some people who are not in support of option two because they are unfortunately mistrusting of staff and their intentions, which I would say isn't warranted, but I know that there are a lot of people that feel that way. And so I just worry about implications from that. So fully transparent, I like option one and feel like option one was kind of what we were going for last year or last cycle, this most recent cycle. With Miles reviewing, and again, not that we have to go this way. And I don't want to be the loudest voice in it, so I'm taking over the conversation, but I feel like last year was a little tough for us because this was the first year for a couple of us to be involved in the conversation. And then it was the, new council representatives. And so trying to get everyone on the same page. One thing that Miles and I have discussed that we would like to improve on between us next year is just recognizing the need to get everyone on the same page. And so, for instance, initially there was the discussion of what types of projects should be allowed and what shouldn't be allowed. And that conversation was had between a couple of staff members. But there was a disconnect between that and then the selection committee who had served previously and went off of sort of a different direction. So trying to get both on the same page was tricky. And so we recognize that there needs to be some adjustments to that. I feel like we now are more aligned between the three, between the selection committee after we've seen that for the first time, Central Business and Miles. And so I think that we'll be able to do a better job of understanding the application process next year and answering questions for the applicants. Also, whichever route we go, I think, but definitely with option number one, it's not going to be anyone's interpretation. It's going to be judging off of the rubric. But I think with option three, with it going to the selection committee and then back to the selection committee, there's a little more room for interpretation there. So, but do you feel comfortable saying?
Oh, yeah, no, I was talking briefly earlier. I was partial to option two. For a couple main reasons. So if it was staff, just like a few different people, a lot of them wouldn't have any other handling of the application process. Because while I love Miles and he gives fantastic advice, if he were solely giving the feedback, he already knows what they're doing. So if there's something they're not saying, and we have this issue with giving feedback to some of our Mont Christiansburg students, because we knew what they meant. So we didn't realize that they weren't saying something until someone who didn't have any idea what they were doing read it and was like, I don't understand this part, because they didn't have the context of what the intention was. And then like for the same reasons for option 3, there's pros and cons to both. Having it solely be staff, it's getting opinions from people who aren't going to be doing the ultimate scoring. So you are going to run the risk with option 1 or 2 that the advice given is staff's interpretation of the rubric,
Which goes against the selection committee.
which could, but I feel like you said, that there's more of an inline discussion. I know there's plans to have more discussions and trainings and like just to make sure that everyone's on the same page prior to anything being scored in the first place. There's gonna be pros and cons to both.
For sure.
So I have some questions.
Sure.
So I guess my thought is that when they submit the application, you're reviewing them for completeness or components that are just incorrect, like pretty straightforward kind of things that they need to submit to be eligible.
Mhm.
And I guess I didn't realize that we were doing a lot of coaching in the process, but because for me, it's a little different than Launch Christiansburg, where you're trying to bring people along
Mhm.
for this, purpose of improving their businesses and that kind of thing. So I guess I'm a little confused and also with the rubric, we found in the case of the last go round that even among committee members, the interpretation of the rubric differed vastly.
Mhm.
And so if you go through and apply the rubric with your mindset,
Mhm.
and then the committee members have a different mindset, then they could maybe get applications that are scored. Again, I don't know. It just seems,
Yeah.
you know what I'm
I see
saying?
what you're getting at, yeah, because then I could say.
Because you
I
could
think
say
this is a
these
great
didn't
idea.
really, this one didn't really apply because I applied the rubric this way. And so they're getting a synopsis that might not incorrectly, but dissuade them from one or the other, just because the rubric is subject to interpretation,
Mhm.
even though it seems like it should be pretty straightforward.
Right.
We found out it was not.
Right.
Right. right.
Because the committee members had vastly different
Yeah.
Mhm.
scoring. So I guess that's my only concern is, I could see maybe you or staff reviewing them for completeness
Mhm.
and leaving the appropriateness of the responses up to the applicants. I mean, they're all business people that I feel like should be able to complete an application.
Is part of what, and I think that's a really interesting suggestion. And sounds good to me so far. Is
Mhm.
part of what we would run into with that, well, I know part of it for sure with the selection committee, and we had talked about this too, like, do we need to, instead of bringing people from, because we have made changes, I think that was one thing, they were unclear on some of the changes that we had made, or how the different direction we were going, and that's on us, with how we, the different things that we need to communicate. We didn't understand the types of questions until we went through the cycle. And so now we see it, and that's how, communication is going to be better this year. But if we did that, or is part of the conversation, Miles, with you working with them to help them understand like what it is that I guess if they have the rubric, then they should understand what is priority.
And I think that's a really interesting point, because my having more in-depth conversations of you should do X, Y, and Z with your project changes maybe what they were gonna do. And if I'm not totally in line with every single selection committee member, then I could be making them score lower because of my suggestions. So maybe, like what you said, it's coaching, or it was coaching this past year. Maybe it's more of, we're gonna go into some examples of past projects, or we're gonna go into some examples of what we're looking for, but then leave it up to them to say, it's up to you to convey everything in your application.
But if that's the case, do we even need to give examples? Because they should be able to see it clearly. Like if we're doing our job right, then is it that they would be able to see it clearly from the, rules, regulations and guidelines, as well as giving them the rubric for what the criteria is? But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
they're still, like, if we are,
Emotions will come to play.
yeah, with whoever the
matter
selection committee is, whether it's the one that we've had for the last 2 years or whether it's a completely new one, there will have to be room for interpretation and discussion.
And I think kind of, yeah, there will be room for interpretation and discussion. What you said about like the subjective parts need to be left up to the selection committee. I agree with that. I think the thing I heard a lot from people is like, what should I do with my application? And
That's the part I
That
have a
in-
problem with. And,
Yeah,
and,
yeah, yeah.
and also because probably not everybody asked you that question.
right,
So they're not all on a level playing field then, because some
Right.
people said, I did my job, I did my application, I submitted it, but I didn't ask for, did I do this right? But other people did, and so they kind of got. a
But we
little
did
bit
make
more
it
like a-
mandatory that they had a discussion with Miles about their application before it was submitted.
And I think maybe that was where that clarity on coaching versus just the,
Maybe explaining what the intent of the committee was, maybe then,
right,
not coaching.
right,
So maybe your role is confirming the completeness
Mhm.
and
That makes
Um,
everything easier.
that makes it a lot easier.
the validity. of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
plan As best you can, and encouraging them to, which is something I have done in past grants, when I had to do work on grants, to take your rubric
Mhm.
and your application, give it to a trusted friend, whose opinion you trust, and
Mhm.
ask them to score it and
Yeah.
see what they say. And if you want to make changes based on knowing, they may have different opinions in the selection committee, but this is where they're going to start. And just allow
Yeah.
them the opportunity to get some feedback on their own if they want it. Because it, it's hard to pick the right option here. Giving them, we don't want to give them feedback that steers them away from a good score from the
Well-
selection committee, and we don't want the selection committee to go in with bias.
I mean, so kind of going based off of that, do we need a preliminary review? I mean, and so some of the businesses, the feedback was like, hey, I didn't realize X, Y, and Z, so I didn't have time to change my application. But I mean, if we're gonna leave it up to them, and like, I'm here to clarify what it says on the paper. But I guess if we leave it up to them, whether they submit a project that has eligible parts, and I can tell them like, hey, this part isn't
Read
eligible.
the packet.
Right, but
Do you
we're,
have an example of something that maybe someone asked that? I mean, I think the packet's gonna be more clear, like these changes and clarifications, those are things that we learned, and I'm sure next year there'll be additional clarifications that maybe we run into. But do you think that do you have a question that maybe someone asked that we might run into that might be tricky for you to answer?
I think as we go through this year to year to year, it's gonna get easier because we can clarify the biggest one I'm thinking of is New River Engraving, where a big part of their project was paving. And then they had some landscaping, which was like a tree by the front of the door. And that the paving wasn't super clear last year, but now that it's in here, it's like, okay, well, this is clearly not something that, so I think year to year, as we get those questions, we can maybe adjust the criteria for the following year. What?
No, I just.
Oh, but I mean, I maybe I've been overcomplicating it from the start.
Well, and I don't mean that. I mean, it was it was just a question.
No,
because,
but
you
it's
know,
a
not
really good
being
point.
In from the beginning,
Mhm.
this last cycle. But it does seem to me like they should be, I mean, our instructions should be clear
Mhm.
as to what is required of them and they should submit it and I don't have a problem with having a window for you looking at it and saying, oh, you're missing something.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, I submit grants and often the grantor will say, you know, you submit it, you know, this much before or on the deadline, and then you've got 10 days. Once we
Okay.
review it, and then you'll have 10 days to fix it,
Okay, Okay.
kind of thing. But I mean, you know, I don't know what you
Mhm.
think about that. I just didn't know we were doing that much coddling.
yeah, no, that's honestly a good way to put it. So I think the reason we did that was because the years before there had been either not a lot of qualified applicants or there weren't many applicants that like explain their projects well. But
There could be
Yeah.
a different, I mean,
Yeah, I think-
if you, because we've made that the requirement for them to attend one of the, I think that made it open up to you being more of a coach, because we required that we have them attend one of the 3 sessions. Well, another option to that would be to allow them to contact you with any questions that they have regarding qualifications, things like that. And require, if we still want to make a requirement, we could require them to come in to the committee and explain their project. And then, you know, it could still be scored on one day, but, you know, almost like an interview. That would be an option too. If we still wanted a requirement, and didn't want to do the 3 sessions and then attending one, it just,
I wonder now, like thinking about it through that lens, if we even need a requirement, you know, like maybe, because I know that one thing they had expressed before, or the committee had expressed before was like like as Miles said, not a lot of complete applications and not a lot of interested or, you know, and maybe part of that was just the lack of communication in years past. And, you know, now we have someone who I know Miles, you know, it
central point.
yeah, like, and went and made calls and through connections said, hey, you know, have you heard about this program? This may be good. Have you looked into it? And so maybe as we grow that, and we've also grown the way that we communicate the facade grant program and had more conversations about that, maybe that'll alleviate some of the, well, and also, you know, if we don't get interest in the application program, that's another thing that we talked about, like, then does it need to change? And if it's no good, then it's no good. So
And I think also, like, if we don't get a lot of interest because we kind of scale back on the coaching or eliminate the coaching, maybe that's not such a bad thing because we're getting the people who are really invested in their facades.
True.
So maybe we made it too easy, yeah, for people to,
and maybe as people come to you, sorry, with questions about their application, you can say things like, you know, I would go into, maybe consider going into more detail on the type of work that you're gonna do. Like that, I don't feel like that's too in depth with coaching, right? Like you're
right.
not saying like, well, typically we like this and, you know, this is what, you know, but just,
Say like, hey, you've got 2 sentences here,
yeah.
maybe
Can
put a
you
little bit
provide
more detail.
feedback? Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So what would it look like if we didn't do the workshops, but the workshop became more like some sort of a guide, a
We could
deck?
do a video,
Yeah, I mean.
like just a recorded video where I'm
like-
talking through this
Here's
stuff
the-
in the same way, but it's not it's not a back and forth coaching, and then they can call with
Stuff.
questions.
Exactly. And maybe one of those pieces is like a best practices where you go into, make sure that somebody who's never heard of your project before has
Mhm.
every detail they need about your project
Right.
in that application. You know what I mean? Like those little reminders that everybody could hear, that little list of best practices that we've been learning from.
And I guess if we record it, everybody's getting the same thing.
Yes. And then
think
we
that
are
sounds really good.
saving some of your time from the workshops
Mhm.
for putting that into their hands, they're responsible.
Mhm.
We give them the recommendations, you run it by a friend if you want them to score it and tell you if they're missing any information, like that's an option that they have, but it's up to them. They don't have to. And then they can always call you with questions.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think that's more fair because some of the questions that were asked in one of the meetings could have not been asked in another one.
Mhm.
And then they failed to do something the other ones did.
But if anything comes up, you can always let people know that if somebody asks a great question we didn't anticipate, we could email out that information to everyone if
Mhm.
there's some sort of an update or clarification that the committee comes up with.
Wasted shush. So are we good with moving forward with that?
I have two more little quick points.
With this?
Yeah, with the facade grant.
No, no, no.
Not this specific
Okay,
point, just the
but
next
we're good
point.
with, so we're gonna take like,
Step back.
yep, and less trying to get all up in the application. Okay, cool. Guys.
Yes and
Yeah.
no.
So I know it was either last time or the time before, we had mentioned just like whether the selection committee they go based strictly on the scores. And we talked about how we award money based on those scores. Are you guys okay with just doing the max award for the highest applications and then we just go down? So like if first through fifth, I'll ask for $5,000. We just award 5,000 all the way down.
I think what we ran into with that was that some of the applications might not be 5,000, so then you had to do some kind of proration.
Mhm.
um,
So,
And some didn't qualify, some of them had little things that didn't qualify, so they couldn't.
so if we did max award based on what qualified and what they were up to, because I know the other option we had talked about was like, first place would get like 100%, and then second and third place would get 80%, and then, but I think maybe giving them as much as we can give them would be more of a draw. It would mean more for their business. Okay, so you guys are good with doing the max award, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you'll just have to figure out
If there's
somebody
things that,
scores highly on the rubric request is 4,000.
Mhm. And I guess if we have money that doesn't line up evenly, we can just do whatever's left to the next highest scoring person.
Like, it is a competitive grant. I'm okay with somebody winning everything they ask for because they have a project that's outstanding.
Okay.
And, I'm also okay with if there's like a certain threshold. Not that I'm recommending this, but if we get 8 applications and only one of them scores really well and the rest don't, I'm okay not awarding and, something that
Mhm.
doesn't have a great project. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay not giving the entire grant out just because we have it and they were next in line. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not sure that there's like a number, like a threshold
Mhm.
that we need to determine, but I'm open to that.
I have one quick question, Miles, you just made me think. So if we have an application that has something listed in there that doesn't qualify, do we scrap the entire application?
So I think that's gonna be something that I really strongly recommend itemizing their budgets and itemizing their timeframes. So that way the selection committee, or so that when we're doing the eligibility, we can say this specific part of the project is not eligible, scratch that out and continue with the rest. Because we had some applications this year that didn't itemize things out and we had no idea what percentage of the cost was for
Yeah,
each part.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna suggest itemizing everything out as much as possible. Yeah,
Are you good with that? Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, what was your last question?
no, that's good. And then the last thing is the town artist. I think this kind of goes in line with the kind of track that we're on with kind of putting it up to them to complete their application. We didn't have anybody last year to reach out to use the town's artist, so I think it would make sense to just kind of take out that option and let them handle their designs and it's up to them to visually show the committee.
Yeah.
What what their project is.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay.
You're uncomplicating this.
I like it.
Right.
I like that too. I like
like
it
it.
so much.
I like
Yeah.
it.
Great suggestion. All right. Any other questions? Other thoughts? Cool. That was the biggest thing we had for tonight. So we will then get started with marketing this program. We're going to get started on changes and adjustments and clarification and all of our materials. We'll get started in January with marketing. Yeah. I guess we're good.
Brainstorming outreach.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for your time on this committee.
Thank you. I will miss you all.
We will miss you.
Oh, it's the last one?
Yeah.
Oh.
You can always come hang out again.
We had an advisory committee forming. if
Yeah.
I believe she was welcome to stay on the arts. She
you-
didn't give me an answer.
Yeah, I'll have to think about it. I ended up like over extending myself, so I have to take a step back for a little bit. See what I'm doing, but
There's always later.
the house tour's over, so that's done.
Yeah.
It's one less thing. But thank you all. It's
Yeah.
been a pleasure to serve on the committee and I've learned a lot. So thank you for everything you do.
And we are adjourned.
Have a good trip.
It doesn't matter what they got. They're gonna be able to.
Called me, I reached out, had them.
And there, I mean, I've watched this stuff for years.
Yeah. I don't
And
know.
there's some stupid business out there. Sod grant, wanna know what they did?
One
I want new floors in my building.
Extensions for the.
They're, I'm serious, their application
So one of them
was for, to paint something on the front of their windows, do window painting. The rest of the 5,000 they wanted was, I wanna put new floors down in my thing, because they were floors are together. And the whole landscaping came up when it came before council about landscaping. They
With
go,
all those.
anyone else see a problem with landscaping?
Say they wanted
And,
projects.
Victor Dusalis.
Right.
He's like,
And it's frustrating for everybody.
$5,000, I should pay for my mowing and weed whacking of my property downtown for the year.
Money.
Which is where the whole,
Have to make
the
sure.
whole thing with landscaping came up with because it's landscaping.
Yeah, there's always gonna be something.
And unfortunately, like I said, you
The
can't
best
say
grant
stupid
program
sometimes.
on that part of the-
Master Gardeners run theirs really well. They've got it all.
That's a great note.
During the day.
If you don't, then probably you're wasting everybody's time and you're taking the opportunity away from somebody who
How
might
soon do
have
you
that.
want to discuss that?
Mhm,
The
mhm.
timeline is something that needs to start in January. They'll have the entirety of the fiscal year to do the project.
Yeah.
The question, though, the question I had about that too was. that
Public
you
Arts
said
Board and
there
how
was
do
such
we-
differing opinions as to how that worked. And even within the time period that I've seen,
Mhm.
like, there was like, well, we want to encourage anything, because it maybe it's
Ideas they need to
catalyst
gather.
or a start of something. So something as simple as painting a building, if we're giving them a little bit of help,
I don't know.
But
how
now we're-
much time to meet.
we're limiting that to small amounts.
So that's
and
okay.
January is a good time to start that.
Okay.
While we're having this conversation.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that you heard,
Just doing it in January.
you had,
That's
actually,
another
it was like,
time.
I want big projects.
Into a few of
And
them.
if you do a big project, it's probably not gonna fit in a year time.
Right.
And then if you
Right.
have somebody
Yeah,
who's
I'm
like, Stacy's like, well, I just want you, and it's gonna start it
I-
with something,
Mhm.
and then maybe build a
I
project
just,
later
Mhm.
on, which means like.
I feel like
Right
I
now,
keep hearing like, something before we would all be okay with this thing. And I'm like, all right, well, what is that thing you want fixed?
Next year.
And so I'm trying to figure out what's on that list.
And there may
Maybe
be
not.
projects where you.
I mean, we've got a couple of ideas, but January.
They did smaller
Yeah.
projects, or they wanted to be
Mhm.
building on it.
Mhm.
I mean, and that's gonna be
Solution
one
for
thing, so
everything.
you have to
Oh,
deal with it.
No.
Well, opinions for sure.
Opinions are never bad, right? We can
But I
take
just,
notes.
It gives us
so I was,
something to like.
yeah.
start with.
So,
Clarifying.
Extension, because that was the thing we talked a lot about this past year, because there was for
that
the
Chris
people that are
Graham
doing
is out
bigger
there.
projects.
It goes back
Because
to
they
that
got
one
the
question
project.
that they had year
This is
before
the-
house, which
we're-
was like,
We
they were like,
contracted them.
there's that one part of
So
the
it's not
rubric
like
that says,
town
have you
staff
applied
people.
for it? So then you're not necessarily eligible the next year, but if you're doing a smaller project,
Mhm.
it almost is like punitive
Yeah.
to have that if you're doing a smaller.
There was
No, we
something we
had that
did where it
aside.
was like, if you
It's in the rubric.
applied and were awarded and you didn't use the money, you can't apply for 2 years
But
or
they-
something like
They,
that.
oh, that was definitely two, because I remember when they were
Yeah.
like, because they.
Because
had
we're
to
trying
get-
to get people to use the money. Like, you can't just wait.
I honestly feel like the one thing that I brought up that was. I don't
So-
think that's missing.
How do we simplify that so I can write it down?
Like I said,
That's, so is it like,
is the money available for these projects?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Time type thing.
Yeah, I got that one
honestly
here.
feel like that's gonna be, I honestly think that's probably
I
a
love
big
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second one was, your question, I guess, yeah, are we prioritizing larger projects?
Yeah.
Or is it any project?
And
Is that the
in
question?
particular, like with Stacy, it's funny because Stacy, the way that I'm looking at it, his viewpoint was like that. He's like, well, there's a lot of rundown buildings in an area. And so the goal for him was like to just get a start, because if you have somebody who starts on something and then the neighbor goes, oh, I'm. Let's make hearts nice, too, or let's apply also, because he doesn't stop on this thing. And then, like I said, Ashley's big thing, or your office open, it's an invisible part of town, and I like.
Oops, sorry.
So for me, the big thing is it's visibility, which maybe isn't so much.
Mhm, mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Well, I think that runs up into with I guess with any committee, but with the committee in general, everyone